Today, I'm going to see if I can beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Infinite Fusion, which, for those that don't know, is basically a game where you, the player, can, as the name implies, fuse any two Pokemon together. For this challenge, I'm obviously going to be using the traditional Nuzlocke rules alongside the hardcore Nuzlocke rules. I'll also be adding some additional rules to make things more interesting for myself, with those rules being that I can't use setup moves, I can only use the Pokemon fusions, so in other words, for every 2 encounters, I'm really only getting 1 encounter. Once 2 Pokemon are fused together, I can't unfuse them. I also can't catch any prefused Pokemon that I find in the wild. And finally, there is no EV training. Regardless, without further ado, let's get into the video. Also, if you enjoy my content, please hit the like button and subscribe. It took me literally 3 fucking hours just to get debug mode working in this game. So, we begin our journey in Oak's lab, where I pick up a Bulbasaur. I then head out of Viridian City, pick up Oak's parcel, and then head back to his lab where he gives us the Pokeballs. I then go up to Route 1, where I encounter a Pidgey that I end up catching. After that, I head farther up north, reaching Route 2, where I find a Rattata that I easily catch. After that, I go up to Viridian Forest, where I encounter and catch a Weedle. I then head back to Viridian City, level up the Weedle, evolving it into Kakuna, and then fuse the Pidgey and Kakuna, giving me Paduna. I then level up Paduna, evolving him into Padrill. After that, I head over to Route 22, where I take out a trainer and then encounter and catch a Mankey. I then fuse Bulbasaur and Rattata, which gives me Bulbatata. After that, I head west and begin the fight with my rival, leading Bulbatata, who manages to take out his Nidoji after a couple bites. He then sends out his Squirtmander. Regardless, at this point, I decide to go for Vine Whip, getting it to around half health. I then switch into Padrill, who finished it off with Twin Needle and Gust. Now, you may be wondering why I chose to do this optional fight, and well, it's because beating this rival fight gives us access to the secret garden area, where I end up finding a Lickitung. Once I catch the Lickitung, I head back to Viridian Forest and quickly take out the trainers, which leads to me eventually reaching Pewter City. Now that I've reached Pewter City, I head over to Route 3, where I unfortunately encounter a Sunkern that I catch. I then head back to Pewter City, go into the gym, take out the necessary trainers, and then begin the fight with Brock, leading Bulbatata, who easily takes out his GOG with a couple Vine Whips. His final Pokemon at Dignix is then sent out and easily one-shot after I hit it with a quick Vine Whip, which gives me the win and the first badge. After beating Brock, I head back to the Pokemon Center, heal up, and then level up both of my Pokemon to 16, evolving Bulbatata. I then head over to Route 3, take out a few trainers, and then eventually reach the Pokemon Center where I buy the guy's Magikarp. I then head into Mount Moon and encounter a Zubat. Once I catch it, I level up Magikarp to 20, evolving him, and then fuse the Gyarados and Zubat, giving me Garabat. I then head back into Mount Moon, do some story shit, get the HM for Rock Smash, and then take out a few trainers, which eventually leads to Padrill evolving, and me reaching the end of the cave where we find a scientist who's with Team Rocket. After beating the scientist, he gives me the Helix fossil, and I then get out of the cave, reaching Route 4, where I find and catch a Cleffa. I then go a little bit farther east and reach Cerulean City. After reaching Cerulean City, I quickly level up my team, evolving Ivytata. I then go into the gym, take out a trainer, and level up Garabat to 22, evolving him. I then begin the fight with Misty, leading IVK, who takes out her Jigglydean after a couple Hyper Fangs. She then sends out her Oddyu, who is also easily killed after being hit by a couple Hyper Fangs, giving me the win, and with it the second badge. Now that I've beat Misty, I head over to the Nugget Bridge, where I begin the fight with my rival, leading Garabat, who pretty much just shits on his entire team with Wing Attack. Regardless, I take out a few trainers, including the Rocket Grunt, and then encounter a Bellsprout that I catch. I then head back to the Pokemon Center and fuse Mankey and Lickitung, giving me Likiki. I then head back to Route 24, take out a few trainers, eventually reaching Bill's house, where we get the SS ticket. After that, I head over to Route 5, where I encounter and catch a Meowth. I then go through the underground path, eventually reaching Route 6, where I encounter an Oddish that I end up catching. I then reach Vermilion City, pick up the Old Rod, and fish and encounter a Shelder that I catch. I then head west to Diglett Cave, where I pick up a Diglett. I then head over to Route 11, where I find and catch a Drowsy. Now that I've got all my encounters, I head over to the SS Anne, pick up the TM for Brick Break, and then begin the fight with my rival, leading Garabat, who, once again, easily takes out his entire team with a few Wing Attacks. I then pick up the HM for Cut and head back to Vermilion City to prepare for the gym, which I do by fusing Drowsy and Oddish together. I then level it up, evolving it twice. After that, I head into the gym, take out a couple trainers, and then begin the fight with Surge, leading Gluna, who takes out his Volpe and Pikalet with a couple Mega Drains. His final Pokemon, Rybuzz, is then brought out and easily dealt with after I put it to sleep and hit it with a few Psybeams. This wins me the fight, getting me the third badge. Now, up to this point, this game has been pretty much just basic Kanto with Pokemon fusions, but I would say this is when it starts to differentiate itself a bit more. Regardless, now that I've beat Surge, I leveled my Pokemon, evolving Licky. I then go back up to Cerulean and head east to Route 9, where I pick up a Nidorina. I then take out a couple trainers and eventually reach Route 10, where I find and catch a Voltorb. I then head into the power plant, which, while yes, you can get Zapdos here, I decide to not use legendaries in this run. So I encounter a Magnemite that I easily catch. After that, I head into Rock Tunnel and decide to delay my encounter as there's a static Honedge I can pick up. It is important to note, however, that you need to use a Rock Smash in order to access the area. The problem here is that there's a pretty decent chance that you'll encounter Pokemon when using Rock Smash, which would prevent me from getting this broken ass encounter. Luckily, after beating a few trainers, I managed to reach the hidden area with zero issues and pick up Honedge. I then take out a few more trainers and get out of the cave. After that, I head over to Lavender Town and go into the Pokemon Tower, where I begin the fight with my rival, leading Garabat, who easily takes out his Naruto. He then says it is Garabat, so I swap into Gluno, who takes quite a lot of damage, so I switch again to Lickiape, who tanks a Thrash with barely over half health. Finally, I decide to switch back into Garabat, who gets the Intimidate off and kills it after a few wing attacks. I then take it as Warmeleon with a couple more wing attacks and Starbro with a bite, giving me the win. After that, Mr. Fuji gets kidnapped, and I then decide to head over to Route 8, where I encounter and catch a Vulpix. I then go through the underground path, reaching Route 7, and only seconds later, Celadon City. After getting there, I head back over to Route 7 and pick up a Pikachu. I then go over to Celadon and walk this girl's Eevee, which leads to her giving it to me because it liked the walk. Like, imagine walking someone else's dog for 20 minutes, and then when you get back, the owner just fucking decides that it's yours now because it enjoyed the walk. Regardless, I then go over to the flower shop, pick up the coin case, and head over to the game corner where I pick up a Scyther and some TMs with some definitely legitimate coins. I then head over to Cerulean Cape and encounter a Poliwag that I easily catch. I then go back to Celadon, add Eevee and Meowth to the team, evolve both of them, and fuse them together, forming Vaporeon, which is, for the record, ugly as shit. I then level up Ivy Kate, evolving him for the final time, and finally, I add Shelter and Cleffa to the team, evolve Cleffa, fuse them together, and then evolve it again, giving me Clefster. I then evolve Lickiape and decide on the final team of Padrill, Venucate, Garabat, Lickiape, Clefster, and Vaporeon for the upcoming Giovanni fight. I then go into the sewers, do the puzzles, take out a few trainers, and eventually reach Giovanni. I begin the fight leading Lickiape, who I decide to use Dig with, hoping to one-shot his Arnix, but unfortunately, he decided to switch into Ryrus, who easily takes the hit. I then switch into Garabat, hitting him with Aqua Tail, killing it easily. He then throws his Honk-Ons, who I managed to get some good damage on with Bite. I then switch into Venucate, hoping he'd Shadow Ball, so I get a free switch, but he Dizzy Punches, so I decide to switch again to Clefster, who manages to hit it with a Charm, essentially crippling it. I then switch back into Lickiape, who was about to finish it off with Knockoff, but he decided to switch back into Arnix, who I easily kill with Dig. Honk-On is then sent back in, dies after I hit it with another Knockoff, giving me the win. After that, I head back to the Pokemon Center and fuse Magnemite and Vulpix. I then evolve both of them, giving me Magnetails, whose sprite looks fucking amazing, by the way. I then head into the gym, take out a couple trainers, and begin the fight with Erica leading Magnetails, who easily one-shots her Exoduo. Her Tanape is then brought out, so I switch into Garabat, who easily takes it out with a wing attack. Her final Pokemon, Valbell, is then brought out, so I decide to switch back into Magnetails, who kills it with a couple flamethrowers, giving me the win, and with it the 4th badge. Now that I've beat Erica, I head back to the Pokemon Center and swap Padrill for Gluno. I then head back to Lavender Town and go into the Pokemon Tower, where I quickly pick up Ghastly and then take out a few trainers, eventually reaching Mr. Fuji, who gives us the Pokeflute. I then escape rope out of the tower and head south to Route 12, where I take out a few trainers and pick up the static Snorlax. I then fly over to Vermilion, pick up the bike voucher, and go over to Cerulean and get the bike. After that, I head over to Cycling Road, where I encounter and catch a Slugma. I then take it a couple trainers and reach Route 18, where I encounter a Venomoth that I use Power Gem on for some dumbass reason. Regardless, I then head east to Route 15, where I encounter a Venonat. Really wishing I didn't just kill the fucking Venomoth, but anyways, I catch it, pick up the HM for Strength at Janine's house, and then head into the Safari Zone, where I unfortunately find a Nidoran male. I then pick up the HM for Surf and head back to the Pokemon Center and start preparing for Koga. I do this by adding Honedge to the team, evolving it, and then fusing Doublade and Snorlax, giving me Snorblade, who replaces Vaporeon. I also added Clefster to the team, replacing Gluno. I then head into the gym, take out a few trainers, and then begin the fight with Koga leading Magnetails, who managed to take out his Venomer and Magnafang with a couple flamethrowers. His Chinook is then brought out, so I hit it with the Will-O-Wisp and then spam Extrasensory, which eventually kills it. His final Pokemon, Beether, is then brought out and subsequently killed as I hit it with the Flamethrower, and just like that, we have earned our 5th badge. After beating Koga, I head over to the Pokemon Center and fuse Gastly and Pikachu, creating Gaschu, and then evolve it a few times, resulting in Genchu. I also leveled up the rest of my team to 41, evolving Garabat for the final time. I then head over to Saffron City and go into Silphco, and immediately go to floor 5 and pick up the keycard. I then spend 15 fucking minutes trying to save all these stupid ass employees, which rewards me with the free Lapras, so it was kinda worth it at least. I then go right to the 10th floor and begin the fight with my rival, leading Magnetails, who after a couple flamethrowers manages to take out his Nidogeon. He then sends a Electados, so I switch into Venucate and kill it after a couple Razor Leafs. His Tauros is then brought out, so I switch into Snorblade, who gets hit with a fucking fat ass payback. I then decide to switch once again to Lickiape, who gets a close combat off, but unfortunately doesn't kill. Finally, I switch one more time into Garabat and manages to finish off the rest of his team. Now that I finished the rival fight, I head right into the tag team Giovanni fight leading Magnatails, who I immediately switch out of and instead send in Garabat. I then switch once again to Snorblade, just letting my rival do most of the heavy lifting here. I finally switch one last time into Licky Ape, who manages to get some damage off on both Ryrus and Genkan, but he switches out Ryrus and he sends in Primarino. I then get hit by an Outrage, forcing me to switch, so I send Snorblade back out, and then after Primarino kills itself in confusion, I switch back out again and send in Venecate, who I also immediately switch out of and send in Magnatails, who is going to kill Ryrus with Flamethrower, but unfortunately gets Dark Pulse flinched. At the very least, Genkan goes down after a Hydro Pump. Regardless, Sand Queen is then brought out, so I switch back into Venecate, and then switch back out of it, sending out Snorblade, who hits the Sand Queen with Body Slam. I then go for another Body Slam on the Sand Queen, while the Tauros, my rival, sent out, finishes off the Ryrus with Takedown. I then go for a final Body Slam, killing it, giving me the win. After beating Giovanni, I talked to the president, accidentally picking Chikorita, because my dumbass was mashing A. I then head over to Goldenrod City and pick up the Duskstone, evolving Snorblade. I then head back to the Pokemon Center and prepare for Sabrina, which I do by fusing Lapras and Scizor, giving me Lapsaur, who replaces Licky Ape. I then head into the gym, take out a few trainers, and then begin the fight with Magnatails, who easily takes out her lead, Hype Mime. She sends out an Alabro, so I switch into Lapsaur, who one-shots it, and the Ezreon with X-Scissor. Her final Pokemon, Genkazam, is then brought out, so I switch into Magnatails, and then again the Snorslash, who finishes it off with a couple Shadow Stings, giving me the win, and with it the 6th badge. After beating Sabrina, I head over to the Pokemon Center and swap Lapsaur for Vaporeon. I then head over to Route 15 and go into the Creepy House area, where I, after completing a quick puzzle, encounter and catch a Mimikyu. After that, I fly over to Pewter City and go through the Secret Forest and into Viridian River, where I find a Mudkip. After catching it, I head back to the Secret Forest, where I encounter and catch a Noctowl. I then fly over to Future City and head south to Route 19 and eventually reach Route 20, where after surfing for a bit, I find a Tentacool that I easily catch. I then head back to Route 19, where I encounter and catch a Horsey. After that, I continue to head west, eventually reaching Cinnabar Island. I then head into the Pokemon Center and replace Vaporeon for Licky Ape. I then head over to the top left of the island, where I encounter a Static Absol that I easily catch. After that, I fly over to Cerulean and head northeast to Cerulean Cape. I then go even farther up north, eventually reaching Route 23, where I beat a couple trainers and then reach Crimson City. I then head over to the Waterfall Cave area, where I pick up a Mawile. I then head back to Route 23, where I encounter and catch a Seal. I then, after realizing I forgot to get an encounter in Crimson City, I head back there and fish up a Goldeen. I then fly back to Cinnabar and go into the Pokemon Mansion, and encounter a Growlithe that I easily catch. I then take out a few trainers until I eventually reach the trainer, Burglar Simon, who brings out a Growlithe, a Pokemon I have zero answers for. So I decide to send in Garabat, who gets roared out into Magnatails. I then go for a Flamethrower and Flash Cannon before the unfortunate crit Thunderbolt that takes out Magnatails, giving me my first death. I then get the fuck out of there and head over to the Pokemon Center and begin preparing for Blaine by fusing together Tentacool and Growlithe, giving me Tentolith, who after evolving a few times turns into Tentanine, who looks fucking sick, by the way. But regardless, I then head back to the Pokemon Center and fuse together Mudkip and Diglett, giving me Mudlet, who after a couple evolutions turns into Swamp Trio. Finally, the last fusion for now, I fuse together Nidorina and Horsey, giving me Nidocy, who after a few evolutions turns into Nidodra. With my new Pokemon, I then head into the gym. Upon heading into the gym, I do the quiz questions and then begin the fight with Blaine, leading Garabat, who doesn't kill his Glutash with Acrobatics because my dumbass gave him a Bright Powder. Regardless, another Acrobatics manages to take it out, which leads to him sending out 9-9. I then switch into Tentanine, who gets hit with a fat-ass Thunderfang, so I decide to switch out into Nidodra, who gets roared out, forcing me to send out Swan Trio, who manages to kill it after a couple Earthquakes. His Chardaxdol is then brought out, so I, after tanking a Hyper Beam, risking a crit, hit it with a Rock Slide, one-shotting it. His final Pokemon, Magnon, is then brought out and killed after Swan Trio hits it with an Earthquake, which gives me the win, and with it the 7th badge. Now that I beat Blaine, I head back to the Pokemon Center and swap Swamp Trio for Venecate. I then head over to Offshore Road, where I pick up a Whelmer. After that, I quickly do a little water puzzle and reach Kindle Road. I then take out a few rocket runs and eventually reach the Zap Malkuna fight, and, well, to say I didn't prep for this fight is putting it lightly. As well, I knew about this fight, I kind of just thought it would be like one Pokemon that's like 4 types or some shit, which is why I gave Genshu Destiny Bond. But instead, what I got was a Pokemon with 3 fucking HP bars, and the result of my lack of preparation was, well, I'll just let you watch. Now, after Venticate goes down, my last Pokemon is Garabat, and the last bird I have left is Zapdos. At this point, I just think the run's over, and I pretty much just lost hope, but then, he missed Thunderbolt, and that's when it hit me. I never took the Bright Powder off of Garabat. This allows me to get another Ice Fang in, killing the Zapdos and winning me the fight. After that disaster of a fight, I head back to the Pokemon Center and look at my PC box and realize, damn, my box fucking sucks. Despite that, however, I managed to build a new team for Giovanni, with that team being Garabat, Wayrath, Gluno, and the newly evolved Clefster, with Swamp Trio thrown in there as well. I then head into the gym, take out a couple trainers, and begin the fight with Giovanni, leading Wayrath, who gets a quick Brick Break on the Rhyperius before he switches out into Electro-Trio. Now at this point, I try to switch out, but it has Arena Trap, so because I have no other choice, I just go for Dive, and he ends up just switching back into Rhyperius for some reason. After that, I decide to switch out into Gluno, who finishes off Rhyperius after a couple Giga Drains. He then sends a Glistar, so I switch into Clefster, who loses about half of his health. I then switch again to Garabat, predicting Earthquake and getting the Intimidate off. I then hit it with a couple Aqua Tails, killing it. Electro-Trio is then brought out, and for some reason, Thunder Waves, allowing me to kill with Aqua Tail. He then sends out Rylak, so I switch into Swamp Trio, who luckily dodges a Horn Drill. I then go for Muddy Water, doing about half health, but he manages to hit me with an Earthquake that I barely live. So I switch back into Garabat, who he, after resting, hits with Snore twice, flinching me both fucking times. Regardless, I then switch into Wayrath, hit it with the Brick Break, and then switch back into Garabat, who kills it this time after a couple Aqua Tails. His final Pokemon, Go-Champ, is brought out, and, well, at this point, I realize I'm a little fucked, and I don't have any real switches. I just decide to switch into Gluno, who gets hit with a fat-ass Dynamic Punch, forcing me to switch again to Wayrath, sacking him off. This sack basically allowed me to send in Clefster and hit it with a couple Charms, which cripples its attack and allows me to kill it after a couple Moonblasts, which gives me the win, and with it the final badge. After beating Giovanni, I head back to the Pokemon Center and evolve Gluno. I then add Lickiape to the team and head over to Saffron City, where I pick up a Rotom. I then fly over to Cinnabar and take the boat to Knot Island. After that, I head over to Kindle Road, where I encounter and catch a Ponyta. I then pick up the network adapter and fly back to Knot Island and talk to the blonde motherfucker who offers to give us one of the Sinnoh Stars, so I choose Chimchar just to check his Met location and immediately be met with disappointment, as it has the same Met location as Garabat. After that, I fly over to Viridian and fuse Rotom and Ponyta. I then fuse Absol and Mimikyu, giving me Mimosol, who replaces Lickiape. After that, I evolve Rota and begin the fight with my rival, leading Clefster, who almost kills Nidogeot after hitting it with an Icicle Crash. I then switch into Garabat, who hits it with an Aqua Tail and Ice Fang, killing it. His Talcute is then brought out and then killed after I hit it with a couple Leech Lives. He then sends his Maghorn, who Garabat also easily kills after Aqua Tail. His Blast Million is then brought out and killed after using a few acrobatics. Finally, when he sends his Electados, I'm forced to switch, so I send out Swamp Trio, who easily takes it out with an Earthquake. His final Pokemon, Starkazam, is then brought out, so I switch into Mimosol, who easily kills it with Shadow Claw, giving me the win. I then go to the Victory Road Gate, and honestly, it wasn't super interesting here, so I'll just quickly recap everything. First, I picked up a Slowbro from Tojo Falls. I then went back to Route 27, where I caught an Arbok. Finally, after beating a couple more trainers, I reach Victory Road, where I pick up an Onix and then take out a couple trainers, eventually reaching the Indigo Plateau. I then do a little bit of preparation for the Elite Four after skimming through some of the teams, with my final team being Swamp Trio, Rodash, Clefster, Garabat, Mimosol, and Slowlix. So, I head into the Elite Four and begin the fight with Lorelei, leading Swamp Trio, who easily takes out our Magong. She instead our Manbro, so I switch into Mimosol, who with the help of the ability to disguise, manages to take it out with a couple Night Slashes. Jin Growth is then brought out, so I switch into Rodash, who easily takes it out with the Flamethrower. Herreris is then sent out, so I switch into Slowlix, who easily takes it out with a couple Brick Breaks. Finally, her last Pokemon, Tentaster, is sent out, also taken out by Slowlix, giving me the win. Now that I've beat Lorelei, I start the fight with Bruno, once again leading Swamp Trio, who easily one-shots her Mavire with Earthquake. Meryl-Chan is then brought out, so I switch into Clefster, who hits it with a few Charms and an Icicle Crash, because my dumbass wasn't paying attention and didn't realize he had Counter. This huge mistake led to the death of Clefster. I then sent a Swamp Trio, again, who kills Meryl-Chan after a couple Muddy Waters. He then sent a Steel Champ, who Swamp Trio easily kills after an Earthquake and a Brick Break. Swamp Trio then proceeds to take out the rest of his team with Earthquake and a couple of Brick Breaks, giving me the win. After beating Bruno, I just go right into the egg of the fight, leading a Mimosol, who easily takes out her Mizmabat. She then sends out a Gendoom, who Mimosol also easily kills. His Umber is then brought out, so I hit it with the Play Rough before I'm forced to switch out into Garabat, but she also switches for some reason, sending out Snorgar, who Garabat easily takes out with a couple couple Aqua Tails. Umtur is then sent back out and dies after I hit it with an Aqua Tail. Her final Pokemon, Wobgar, is then sent out and is also killed by Garabat, which gives me the win. Now that I've beat Agatha, I just head right into the fight with Lance, leading Swamp Trio, who kills his Dragados with a couple Earthquakes. He then sends it as Toganite, so I switch into Slowlix, who is about to kill Toganite before he switches out into Poryjura. I then hit Poryjura with a Brick Break before he switches out once again for some reason, this time sending out Tyrandactyl, who Slowlix easily takes out after hitting it with a couple Surfs. Toganite is then brought out and is also immediately killed after I hit it with a final Flash Cannon. Finally, he sends out his Typhnair, so I switch into Garabat, who gets it to about half before I'm forced to switch again into Mimisul, who easily finishes it off after a Night Slash and Shadow Sneak. His last Pokemon, Poryjura, is then sent out and is also killed by Mimisul, giving me the win and allowing me to move on to the champion. So, now that I've beat the Elite Four, I head into the champion room and start the final fight leading Garabat, getting the Intimidate off into the Dojiat, who I hit with an Acrobatics and Ice Fang before I'm forced to switch into Rodash, who finishes it off with Thunderbolt. Right Mortar is then sent out, so I decide to just sack Rodash and I go for Will-O-Wisp, completely forgetting that it isn't at all affected because it's part fire, so oops. Regardless, I then send a Swamp Trio, who easily takes out Right Mortar with an Earthquake. He then sends it as Tautor, so I switch into Mimisul, who after getting swaggered, one-shots Tautor with Night Slash. His starter Blastoise is then brought out, so I hit it with a couple Night Slashes before I switch into Slowlix, who finishes it off with Surf. Electados is then sent out, and while trying to sack off Slowlix, it manages to set up a couple Dragon Dances, so I switch into Mimisul, who hits it with a couple Charms before dying to a crit Waterfall. Finally, I send out Swamp Trio and one-shot Electados with Earthquake. Star Kazam is then sent out and kills Swamp Trio. Finally, down to my last Pokemon. I send out Garabat and two-shot the Star Kazam with Leech Life, just barely winning the run. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It came out a lot later than I wanted it to, but anyways, if you, once again, make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe, I would really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time.